Hello, this is Dr. Mike McKinney. I'm president of Promise Christian University here in the beautiful city of Covina. And we're so delighted that you tuned in to our telecast today, the Promise Broadcasting Network. And we're so happy each time to come your way and to bring interesting guests, people that I know that have a wonderful experience in God. And we trust that you're going to be blessed here today as well as you watch this program. In studio today at our university, we have a very, very special guest, Brother Walter Tucker. Pastor Tucker, God bless you for being on the program today.
God bless you, Dr. McKinney. I'm so glad to be here with you.
It's an honor and delight for us, and we met at a special conference in LA, and I felt an immediate rapport for you when I first met you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
It is my honor to be here with you
Thank
in
you.
wonderful Promise University, and you're absolutely right. It was just a knowing in my spirit that we were supposed to connect. It was a divine connection.
Yes, I believe that with all my heart
Yes.
today. You have such an interesting background. We want our viewing audience here today to know about you and to know about your ministry and what God's doing in your life. And you have so many great things, milestones. You're still a young man, you know. And yet,
I like to think so.
Yeah. And that's so many great things.
When I was younger, I used to think 60 was old.
Oh, no.
Now that I'm 60, I say, no.
Still a young man. I'm just getting started.
That's right.
That's right. So tell us about your background, your ministry, your work, and what God has done in your life, and about your dad too. We'd like to hear something about your dad.
Well,
please.
Thank you so much. And again, I really want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here. It is a blessing for men of God like you to have facilities like this and a university like this where you can bring people on the air and they can share the love of God, but also share their testimony.
Amen.
Because I believe our testimonies are very important. In fact, the Bible tells us that the Old Testament was written for our example and for our learning, as you well know.
That's right.
And so that lets us know that God is so interested in us learning from the lives and the examples and experiences of other people.
Very good.
So I'm from Compton.
Okay.
As the phrase goes these days, straight out of Compton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am really born and raised in Compton, California. And as you know, Compton, California is an independent city,
Yes.
just southeast of Los Angeles, just outside of Los Angeles.
Right.
And Compton has an incredibly rich history.
It has a great college there
Yes,
too.
yes, great college, great history. A lot of great people have come out of Compton. In fact, there's somebody doing a documentary right now called Compton's Finest, and one of the things they're trying to let people know is all the great people that came out of Compton. Now, some of the people know some of the known things
Sure.
like Venus and Serena, who played tennis, came out of Compton.
Oh, yeah.
But do you know that 2 United States presidents came out of Compton?
No, I had no
see
idea
there.
about
Okay.
that.
Well,
No.
first of all, George Bush Sr. Lived in Compton after the war. After World War II, he lived in Compton, and then his son, George Bush, was born in Compton. So
I
there's
didn't know
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Can
Yeah,
you
there's
imagine
actually-
such
that's
a
right.
thing as
Yeah,
that?
there's 2 U.S. presidents that came out of
Oh
Compton.
my.
And then, but in terms of Compton, when we think about Compton, a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, that's the African American community." Well, prior to the Watts riots in
Yes.
'65,
Right.
it really was not a predominantly African American community.
Right.
It was a predominantly white
Really?
community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And so after the Watts riots, there was what they call the white flight.
Yeah.
And a lot
Yes.
of people, Caucasian people, said, "Well, we're going to move," and
Yeah,
a lot of African American people moved in. The reason this history is important is because it was 1969, just a few years after that riot,
Yes.
that the city was poised to have its very first black mayor.
Oh.
And in 1969, the first black mayor was elected, and he was elected from a runoff election because they had a lot of candidates, and then there was a runoff.
Sure.
And my father was in that runoff election,
Oh my.
but he didn't win.
Oh, he didn't
He
win.
almost was the first
He got
black mayor.
was
He got close, but
Yeah.
he didn't win.
Yeah.
And the point is that the first black mayor, a gentleman by the name of Douglas Dollarhide, he actually became the first black mayor of a major city west of the Mississippi. So that meant that Compton had this significant place in black history.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Dad, Dr. Walter R. Tucker, he was a dentist. My father was a dentist.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. He didn't win for mayor in '69, and he ran again for mayor in '77,
Okay.
and he didn't win again.
Oh.
And then my mother said, I think we should just move out of Compton and, go somewhere else. And Dad
Yeah.
said, no. He says, I believe God has me here for a
There was
reason.
a purpose for his being there.
And he stayed. And then he ran the third time in 1981.
Oh my
And he
goodness.
won.
And he won.
How many people have that kind of perseverance to say,
Oh,
most people say, I didn't win, and
Yeah.
didn't win second time. But third
Wow.
time was the charm, as
That-
they say.
He persevered, he went forward in faith, and
That's right.
it's marvelous.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And then 1981 he won, and then in 1985, 4 years later, he was reelected, and he actually became the first black mayor of Compton to be reelected because all the black mayors before him were one and done.
So he made history.
He made history in a different way.
Wow.
He was reelected in '85, and then he was reelected again in
Oh my
'89.
gosh.
So he was a third-term mayor.
My gosh.
And
I wonder what your mom thought after that.
she said, "Okay, we're staying." She said, "We're staying," and he had bought her a car in the meantime, kind of buy her off
That's
and say,
wonderful.
pacifier.
Oh yeah, of course.
But so they stayed,
yeah.
and his slogan was "Don't move, improve." And so he was very committed to the city of Compton. Again, reelected in '85, reelected in '89, but then in 1990 he got cancer,
Oh.
and he died in office.
Oh my goodness.
And at the time, I was a lawyer.
Yes.
We were talking off camera a little bit about
Yeah.
some acquaintances, and
Yes.
acquaintance of yours who's a prosecutor.
Yeah.
But I used to be a prosecutor. I was with the DA's office in LA.
Oh, okay.
I was a deputy district attorney, and then after a couple of years, I'd gotten into private practice, and so I was a private defense attorney.
Yes.
But then when my dad died, it was like our whole world was rocked.
It was so unexpected.
Yeah,
wasn't
it really was, and he was, he was the rock of the
Oh,
family.
yes.
And so, in a book that I just wrote, it depicts what happens after that.
Yeah.
We went to sleep after my dad had passed, my wife and I, and on the same night, she had a visitation, and I had a vision.
Oh my
She had a
goodness.
visitation from my dad.
All right. I've heard of that. I've heard
And
of
I
those
had a
things.
vision that related to my dad and
Yes.
also related to my life. So here's basically what happened. My dad appeared to her, and she said, was holding her down in the bed and telling her, don't be afraid. Your son, your husband, my son is going to be the next mayor of Compton.
Yes.
There's going to be some tough challenges and some difficult days ahead,
Yes.
but don't you be afraid, and he needs your support. At the same time she was having this visitation from my dad, I was having a vision where an angel was taking me through the courthouse, through the Compton courthouse. And he was saying, look at these courtrooms. He says, you see them? I said,
Yes.
yeah, I see them. I know them. That's why I practice.
Yes.
He says, take a good long look because you're not going to be practicing there anymore.
Oh my
He says, you're going to
goodness.
be the next mayor of Compton.
Wow.
And when I woke up, I was so excited.
Sure.
I said, I got to tell my wife, because
Yeah.
I said, I got to tell my wife what the Lord said. And before I could tell her anything, I said, hey, I got to tell you something. She said, no, I got to tell you something. And so she told me
I love
about
it.
the visitation before I could tell her about the vision.
My.
And it put us together knowing that that was the will of God.
What an overwhelming moment
Yeah,
that
it
must
was.
have been, revealing to each other
Yeah.
what a God had shown.
That's right.
Apparently, you're a man of destiny.
That's
And
that's
God
right.
has that destiny. Many are called, few are chosen.
That's exactly
God
right.
chose you
He did.
and prepared your loved ones for the event that would take place.
God knew because if my wife was sitting here, she'd tell you. She said, she'd say, I married you, but I didn't marry a politician.
No.
she didn't want to be
Yeah,
a politician's
right.
wife. So anyway, I did run, and it wasn't a given. It wasn't like they
Oh,
just
no, of
said,
course not.
you want
No.
you want to take your dad's seat? Here
Oh,
you
no,
go.
it wasn't like that.
So I had to run, and I ran against 3 sitting council members, one of whom was the mayor pro tem. and they were all very polished and experienced
I'm
politicians.
sure they were.
And it was a tough campaign, but in the end I won, and I became the youngest mayor in Compton's 103-year history
That's
at
long.
age 33.
That's remarkable.
Yeah,
Remarkable. That's amazing. Well, actually, you're a man of destiny. And what's a great, as great a man as your father was, and a great mentor, an example for you guys. Yet you have your own quality. You have become your own person in your own right, and there's a greatness there that's been handed on to you through that mantle.
That's right. It's a
And
bit
it
of
took courage, didn't it, to accept that mantle?
yeah, that's right. It's both. I mean, on the one hand, I recognize that I sit on his shoulders, so to speak.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I also recognize that I had to have the faith, and
Yeah.
God had, as you said, prepared me
Sure
to
he
then
did.
walk out and to carry out
Wow.
his legacy, and then even to make new footprints in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and then. The destiny doesn't stop there.
Didn't
because
stop there,
Doesn't stop
okay.
there. It's actually kind of the beginning.
Wow, this is a journey here.
Yeah, 8 months after I became the mayor of Compton, the congressman at that time, Mervyn Dimley,
Oh,
who
yes.
you may know had been the only black lieutenant governor,
Lieutenant governor.
in the history of the state of California.
Right,
Very seasoned politician. He had been congressman for Compton for 12 years.
right.
Announced that he was retiring and it was going to be an open seat.
My, how unexpected that was.
Yeah, just out of the blue.
Wow.
And the word was that he was going to endorse his daughter, which he did.
Mhm.
And everybody felt, well, with the Dimley name and the Dimley political machine, his daughter's a shoe-in. But she at the time was a school board member
Oh.
in Compton, and I was the mayor of Compton. And I remember talking with my mom, and we were talking about it, and we both kind of said, "Hey, you're the mayor, and she's a school board member.
Yeah.
The Dimleys have a good name, but the Tuckers do too."
So that's right.
And
Mother was very wise.
Mother was wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she
and,
is.
And the going thought was, even though I didn't expect that this seat would be open, if I didn't run now, when would I ever have a chance
That's
to go
right.
to Congress?
Imagine that.
Well,
A
I
once
did.
in a lifetime
A once in a lifetime
opportunity.
opportunity knocked.
Oh, my
And when
goodness.
what do they say? When opportunity knocks, you got to open the door.
Yeah.
You can't. Who is it?
Yeah.
Wait a minute! I
Yeah.
got to get dressed. I only have a
Yeah.
T-shirt on. Hold
That's
on.
right.
No,
Yeah.
you open the door. So I opened the door, and I ran. It was a very, very tough race,
Wow.
but I ended up winning. In the eve of the election, we were behind by 1,000
Another
votes.
challenge, right?
We were behind by 1,000 votes.
Mm.
And I remember being in this hotel room in Compton, and I told everybody, look, let's gather together and have a word of prayer.
That's right.
And we all prayed. And right after that prayer, the numbers started changing. And about 3 in the morning, we overcame them. And it was just like a big shout. Hooray! We just, it was just, and I was,
What a moment
you
that
know,
must have been.
I remember being a little kid seeing that movie, Mr.
Yeah.
Smith Goes to Washington.
Of course.
Yeah, Jimmy
Yes.
Stewart. Well, Mr. Tucker went to
Yes,
Washington.
he sure did.
And it was really something.
God's word doesn't
At
return void.
35, at
Yeah.
35 years old, and to this day,
It's remarkable.
I'm the youngest African American to ever go to Congress from the state of California at 35 years old.
That's just wonderful. That is a marvelous
Yeah,
accomplishment. God's word, it doesn't come back void
That's
at
right.
all. It
Amen.
accomplished. And that moment when the thing began to change, the election began to change, and the numbers began to change, and all of a sudden you realize you've been elected. That room must have been
It was
just electric.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was tremendous. It was
Oh,
electric.
my.
It was, as I said, it's one thing to read the great, amazing events of the Old Testament. It's another thing to be living in the glory and
My.
the anointing of God, and to see it for yourself, because we knew it was God. It wasn't
Oh.
it wasn't anything that we could do.
And your dad would be so proud
Yeah,
of you.
he-
And I'm sure he knows.
Yes, he does, and I believe he was looking down.
Yes.
And of course, thank God that my mom, and she's still alive now,
Yeah.
and my mom was
Yes.
there to see it, and it was just tremendous.
Oh, what a great moment for your mom, too.
Mhm.
Isn't that great? I like what she said. They're known, but we're known too.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Amen.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
You know, opportunity only comes once in a while.
Yeah.
But thank God you had the courage to open the door
Yeah.
and the courage to say yes,
Yeah.
knowing all the responsibilities and things that would. But you know, being the mayor and all, I'm sure it was a preparation for this greater position
I
that
believe it was.
you would have.
I believe it was. I think a lot of people, when I ran for mayor,
Yes.
people were wondering, said, well, we know his father, but what about him? And they looked and said, well, now he's a lawyer, and,
Yeah,
went
he
to
has
the best
experience,
schools.
sure.
And then, having been the mayor, as you said, they looked and said, well,
Yeah.
he's got experience, leadership experience.
And of course, you're very articulate, and there is a
Thank you.
leadership anointing on you. So
Praise the Lord.
God used all that to get you
To
there.
God be the glory.
Oh, that must have been a great moment when you went and to the Congress your first day. That must have been. You must have been so excited.
Over the years, people have said, you really need to write a book. And
Yes, we sure want to talk about that.
so, about 17 years ago, I decided that they were right and that I needed to write a book. And it took me 17 years to write this book.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people have written 17 books in 17 years, but what God told me was to take my time.
Yes.
And to get it right, because as a public official, there were so many public facts and things, and last thing I wanted was somebody fact checking and saying, oh no, that didn't happen. So over a period of 17 years, I wrote the book, and the book is primarily about what happened 25 years ago, and it's entitled From Compton to Congress.
Compton to Congress.
Yes.
I love it.
And the subtitle is His Grace for My Race.
Oh, beautiful. That's an inspiration from
Yeah,
the Holy
yeah,
Spirit.
that's
Really.
right.
No wonder the Lord told you to take your time and write it so you could get all that information and things He would bring back to your remembrance
That's it.
and how to word it so the hearts of people will be touched and inspired.
There's
and encouraged.
ministry in that book.
Oh, I'm sure.
In fact, for a long time, the book was entitled His Grace for My Race, and at the last year before I published it, God said, go with From Compton to Congress. He said, because you'll get a lot of people who maybe are not saved, just from a standpoint of political interest. He said, but really the book is very spiritual. He said, so there's bait for all types of fish.
Oh my goodness, this is just wonderful. This is exciting. So in the book you begin to share your testimony,
That's
your
exactly
life.
right.
And what would be some of the high points that for our viewing audience today that we haven't had a chance to read your wonderful book, but what would you say the main thing you're trying to bring out to the people and through this book?
Well, first of all, the copy of the book is on the way to you.
Oh,
you and your wife.
Oh,
your
I'm
lovely
excited.
wife Adele.
Thank
you
you.
guys are just such a blessing.
Thank you,
Are
sir.
going to get a copy. But the second thing I want to say is that the book is available on Amazon.com.
Okay.
And From Compton to Congress, and just type it in, and it's also available on Kindle. So if you want an ebook, you can do it that way.
All
And
right.
soon we'll be having an audio book. So
Yes.
look out for it From Compton to Congress. But to answer your question directly, here's the thing that I want people to glean from this book and this story and this journey. I told you about this incredible political rise that I had. And
Yes.
it really was.
It was
It's
unusual.
still historic. But there was also a political fall.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to write the book. Maybe that's why it took me a little while to decide to write it, because I knew that I would have to be naked and bare before everybody. That
Right.
if I were to write this book, I would have to really, again, like the Bible, we get to see the uprisings and the downsittings of some of these great heroes
And
of
they
faith.
are recorded. aren't
That's
they?
right. I mean, Abraham, the
Yes.
father of faith,
Imagine.
lied.
Yes, he did.
He lied.
Yes, he did.
David, a man after God's own heart. He was a murderer and an adulterer, right?
Exactly.
So Walter Tucker did a lot of great things and achieved a lot of great things. And when I was in Congress, I did a great job in Congress, and I was reelected. And I was on my
Wonderful.
way to going as high can go.
Right.
And one day in my second term, I get a call from the Wall Street Journal's reporter,
Okay.
and it says, Congressman, thank you for taking my call. I want to ask you your feedback to a story. And I was like, well, what story is
What
that?
story? Yeah.
And he says, it has been reported to me, and I'm going to be writing a story indicating that you're about to be indicted.
Oh my! What a terrible
And,
shock that must have been.
Yes, terrible shock. So much so that my first reaction was, wait a minute, is this a joke? Is this a college roommate playing a game on me? Who is this?
Yeah.
He says, no, my name is Andy Pastor. I'm with the Wall Street Journal, and this is a serious matter, and I'm informed that there's about to be a federal indictment coming down.
Oh my goodness, how
And
scary.
I'm glad I
that
was sitting down when this was going on. I said, well, what are you talking about? For what? What do you mean? He says, I said, can you tell me what this is about? He says, I don't have a lot of information, but all I can tell you is that it relates to something that happened 3 years ago when you were mayor of Compton.
It had to do with Compton.
And I'm saying,
Oh.
what? Something 3 years ago? I'm like, yeah, right, yeah. I'm thinking, what do you mean? Something 3 years ago when I was mayor of Compton? And he says, that's all I know. So now, the book takes you on a journey of me racking my brain and trying to figure out what did they have and what did I do and all these kinds of things.
Yes.
To make a long story short, there was an FBI sting operation that was set up even before I was mayor of Compton. And when I became mayor of Compton, there was a businessman who came and he tried to curry favor with me, and he did. I mean, he said, look, I'm a friend of your dad's, and your dad, one of his dying, pledges to me would he help me with this business, and I need your help with this business. And of course, now
you
got my
of course
heart.
you're innocently believed
yeah, and I did.
Yeah.
Well, and I knew his name. I knew he was a supporter of my dad because I'd been a campaign manager with my father, and I said, okay, well, I'll try to help you out, as best I can, and your business, to create jobs, etc. And then he says, well, listen, thank you so much. He says, now how can I help you? And I said, well, I'm a politician, and you can give a campaign contribution. Because politicians, that's how they live or die.
Yes, sure.
And then he says, well, but I can't do that because I tried to get this business off the ground before with the politicians in Compton, and when they knew, that I was trying to support this person, that person, it killed the deal. So look, I just want to give you some cash and help you out. And that was the killer right there.
I see.
And so at that time, I made a bad decision. I was being set up, but I didn't have to go with the setup. And I did, and I took some money from the guy. And then little did I know that because it was a total setup, that they had the cameras rolling and everything else. It was. I mean, it was a big setup. So anyway, all of that.
So you made a mistake.
Yeah, all of that was recorded.
Yeah.
And that's what they had.
Yeah.
So fast forward the story.
Okay.
I knew what I did was wrong, but I also felt that I was entrapped. So instead of me pleading guilty, I said I want to fight the case.
Okay.
And under the defense of entrapment. And I said I need the best attorney I can get. So guess who my attorney was? Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran.
The
dream team.
Yeah,
right?
Johnny Cochran was my attorney. Now that's why this whole story is so historic. Johnny Cochran was my attorney up to the point where I got ready to go to trial. And then one day I get a call from him, and he says, Brother Tucker, I hate to tell you this, but I can't be your attorney anymore. And I said, why not? He says, there's another case I got to take, and it's a case of a lifetime. I said, what is it? He says, a O.J. Simpson case. So then he leaves. The plot thickens, right? So then he has to go and do the O.J. Simpson case.
Yes.
And now here I am without, a good attorney.
Yeah.
But to fast forward the story, I get another attorney, I go to trial, I fight the case, and I'm convicted. And I have to resign from Congress, and I have to go to prison.
It's tragic, a tragedy.
So that we go from the highest high to the lowest low. But it was in prison where I go, and the Lord is there. The first night I get in prison, I go to a little fellowship with a white woman who's singing praise songs. Sister Elaine, I never will forget Sister Elaine. And Sister Elaine is there. The presence of God is there. And I hear God say to me, I told you that wherever you go, there I am. And I knew right away that the Lord had not left me, the Lord had not forsaken me. And on the day of my conviction, I said on those courthouse steps, well, I didn't agree with the jury's verdict, but I accept the will of the Lord. And I believe that God is about to use me now in full-time ministry.
Yes.
Politics is over. And so from that moment forward, I started prison ministry. I started
Right
prison
away,
ministry
right
right
away.
away. And I was in prison for 18 months. And I just started learning what it was about
Sure.
to really be a minister. And some people came into the prison, and prison fellowship, which by the way was started by Chuck Colson.
Oh, yes.
And those people ministered to me, and eventually I came out and became the executive director of Prison Fellowship in Los Angeles.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I was on my way into full-time ministry.
The Lord said He never leave us nor forsake us.
Right.
That's right.
And the key thing that happened in prison was God gave me my life scripture, Romans 8:28.
All things
And we know that all things work together for the good to those that love the Lord and to the called according to His purpose. And God let me know that what happened may have been bad, but He was going to use it for my good and for His glory.
That's right.
And from the time I left prison, which was 1998, well actually December 1997, but literally from 1998 till now, I have been in full-time ministry serving the Lord, and I have never been happier in all
Oh,
my
that's
life.
wonderful. Would you say that the Lord has given you peace over all these things
Oh
that
yeah,
happen?
oh yeah, peace and joy,
Wonderful.
joy, because
Wonderful.
the work of the Lord is the most fulfilling work. I worked with Chuck Colson's ministry,
Yes.
and then I worked with Dr. Frederick Casey Price's
Oh, yes.
ministry.
Wonderful.
I worked with Crenshaw Christian Center.
Ah, wonderful.
And then I worked with another worldwide ministry called From the Heart Church Ministries, and they're worldwide.
Mhm.
But 5 years ago, I started Truth and Love Christian Church. I started my own ministry.
amen.
And I tell you, I couldn't be happier.
Oh, and your wife, she's such a lovely lady. And the Lord she must have been a great support too during all this time of transition and things.
That is
changed.
another reason why I'm so glad that I
Yeah.
wrote the book, because the book tells the story of how we met, which was a divine
Yes.
connection.
Yes.
And it also showed the story of how steadfast she was to my side.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it shows the grace of God and His mercy, and the Lord does forgive and restores. And certainly your testimony today, and I know our viewing audience is very touched, as I am here in our studio here, of your wonderful story, the life journey. And actually, part of it has been completed, but the next part is just beginning.
Yes.
And I feel so many positive things about how God's going to use you, Brother Tucker, in
Yeah.
the future
Well, praise
to
the Lord.
encourage millions of people around the world.
Well, that's why I'm so thankful that you allowed me to come, because the question you asked me was, what do I want people to take away from my story and testimony?
That's correct.
What I want them to take away is that God is great, and even your mistakes and even your bad judgments and bad decisions,
Yeah.
if you look at David's life, you look at Abraham's life, you
Right.
look at Moses'
Moses,
life,
a murderer. Yeah.
Look at my life, a modern day Moses. I was there with presidents, heads of state.
That's right.
I made some bad decisions, and I had to go to prison. But the Lord has restored me. The Lord has forgiven me.
That's
Listen,
wonderful.
even if man doesn't forgive you, God forgives
God
you.
will forgive
And
you.
you know, one of the great things that happened to me about a year ago, I went to the city of Compton, and I asked the mayor and the city council, could I approach and make a personal statement? And I apologized to the city.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
to this day, I have people coming up to me telling me that they've never seen a more courageous thing than, and a more dignified thing than somebody coming back to say, look, I made some mistakes here, and I want you to forgive me.
I bet there were some tears in the audience
Yeah,
that
there
day.
were, and
Yeah.
now I'm working with the city and doing everything I can to help
Sure.
the community.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
marvelous. And the best is yet to
And
come.
the best is
Brother
yet to come,
Tucker.
brother. You said that right.
We
Amen to
want
God.
to say thank you so much for your wonderful being with us, your wonderful testimony, and your book, From Compton to Congress.
Yeah.
And again, they can get it on Amazon.
They can
Is
get
that-
it on Amazon,
All
the
right.
hard copy on Amazon, and they can get the ebook on Kindle.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's been an honor and a pleasure
Oh,
to
it's
have
been my
you, sir.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Godspeed to you.
Thank you. We want to just say to all of the viewing audience, today. I know that you must have been as touched as we are in the studio today to hear the marvelous testimony of our wonderful Pastor Tucker and his great work and the book that has been written as a result of a journey that God's bringing and still bringing him on. And we're very thankful. We're glad that you could tune in our way today, and we trust you've been blessed as much as we have. And we'll tell next time, God bless you real good.